Hi. Well, after much trailing, last week the European Commission finally published its proposal for an Artificial Intelligence Act. Now, we're going to be featuring this quite a bit in our research and also in these videos and other IDC promotion over the coming months as the process unfolds. But while this is still a fresh development, I wanted to at least share an initial kind of readout with you, because it looks like this regulation, when it's finalized, will have a material effect on the industry. Now, the proposed regulation, which is here, seeks to develop an ecosystem of trust by proposing a legal framework for trustworthy AI. As the preamble makes clear, the proposed act is basically a logical extension of existing EU instruments, including the Charter of Fundamental Rights and legislation on data protection, consumer protection, non-discrimination, and gender equality. Put another way, the AI Act is all about trying to make sure that implementations of AI technologies and techniques that impact EU citizens are in harmony with all of those existing positions. As is the way with the EU, this is an attempt to balance the often competing interests of business and innovation on one hand, and societies and citizens on the other. At a high level, the proposed act takes a risk-based approach to regulating AI applications, classifying applications into categories and then applying different levels of controls to each category. It also recommends the creation of a European Artificial Intelligence Board, which would consist of representatives from every EU nation state to help the Commission decide which AI systems count as high risk and which are therefore subject to the strictest controls, and also to retain oversight of the regulation and recommend changes as markets and as technologies evolve. Key elements of the proposal as it stands include a requirement for special authorization when using what the proposal calls remote biometric identification systems, such as facial recognition systems, in public spaces. Notifications would be required when people are interacting with an AI system, unless it's obvious from the circumstances and the context of use. There'd be new oversight for AI systems which are deemed to be high risk, including systems that pose a threat to safety or are safety critical, like, for example, future self-driving cars, and also systems that can potentially impact livelihoods, like those used for job hiring or access to government benefits or credit scoring, those kinds of things. There's also a proposed assessment for high-risk systems before they can be put into service, which would include making sure that those systems are explainable to human overseers, and that they're trained on what the proposal calls high-quality data sets that are tested for bias. Lastly, for now, just as was the case with the GDPR, the proposal indicates a regime of fines for organizations that are found to be in non-compliance. Just as with the GDPR, the headlines are pretty eye-catching. Up to 30 million euros or up to 6% of annual turnover, whichever is higher, for the most serious breaches of the regulations articles. Now, this is not a regulation yet, and the process to make this regulation a live thing, if you like, is long and winding. The final regulation is unlikely to follow what's in this proposal word for word, of course, but I think the direction of travel is clear. The EU will introduce an AI Act, and it will have impacts for any organization building AI into its operations or its products or its services, and any vendor offering AI tools or platforms that may get used in those products, services, or operations. One other point worth mentioning is that the concept of extraterritoriality must be assumed to be in the final regulation. And this means that these impacts are going to be felt by any organization that serves EU citizens directly or indirectly. So, just as is the case with the GDPR, organizations from outside the EU will still need to understand this regulation's potential impact as it develops and prepare accordingly. As I said at the start, this is a topic we will be focusing on extensively, and you can expect us to cover it in depth in our research docs, as well as blogs, videos, and more over the coming months. I'd love to know, what would you like to see us cover in relation to this proposed AI Act? I'd love to hear. Thanks very much for watching. And as always, if you enjoyed this, please like, share and subscribe, and take care. And I'll see you again soon.